good.
Hello, this is the first of a number of videos that you're going to be watching in this class. It is important for you to pay attention. I'll try and highlight the things that are really important and the things that are less important, but I want you to listen to all of it. For those of you who are veterans, some of this is going to be review, but the thing is that we've updated the material, and so you're just going to have to plow through this and listen to it so that you know what is new and what isn't new. And there are some changes, and if you don't know what those changes are, then I will know you didn't watch the video. So everybody's going to have to participate. Everybody's going to have to put in the time. It's that simple. So I want to start off talking mostly to the newer people about what is the Model United Nations. So first, let me state the obvious. The reason it's called the Model United Nations is because it's modeled after the United Nations. It's that simple. And what we do is what happens is we go to conferences and we participate in these fake mock Model United Nations. So it's hard to know where to begin in this explanation. So I'm basically picking a random spot and we'll start from there. When we participate in these conferences, what happens is there are different committees that meet, and you'll be participating in one of the committees in each conference. Different types of committees. There will be committees that are part of what's called the General Assembly. If you don't know what that means, don't worry about it. There'll be committees there will be a committee that is modeled after the Security Council. There'll be what we call specialized committees, which can be a wide range of things. And then there'll be something called crisis committees. You're going to become familiar with all of these. Okay. Now, the type of topics that we discuss at Model United Nations conferences, first, as it pertains to general election committees and specialized committees, the topics that we talk about in the Model United Nations are almost always the most intractable topics of all. They are the topics that the actual United Nations wasn't able to solve. And so that's where we start. So it winds up being that whenever we're preparing for a conference, especially if you're in the General Assembly or you're in a specialized committee, you're dealing with a topic that the professional diplomats couldn't solve. They weren't able to solve. Or oftentimes you're dealing with a situation where the specialists, the real people who do this, they tried to solve it and the outcome was disastrous. So with that in mind, the topics that we discuss are determined in large part by the committee that you're in. So for example, if you're in the General Assembly or a committee associated with the General Assembly, the General Assembly has 6 main committees, and each of the committees deals with a different set of topics. Just like in the Congress, in the United States Congress, you have a Department of Transportation, they deal with transportation issues. You have the Department of Defense, they deal with defense issues. It's the same way with the United Nations. And so one of the committees that meets is called the Social, Cultural, and Humanitarian Committee, or the SOCHA, or SOCHUM, depending on who you're talking to. There's the Special Political and Decolonization Committee, or called the SPECPOL. They deal with a different set of topics. The Legal Committee deals with questions pertaining to international law. The Disarmament and International Security Committee, commonly referred to as the DISEC, deals with disarmament and international security issues. So the committee that you're in is going to shape the topic that's covered. Then there are other affiliated organizations, affiliated with the United Nations, that aren't actual official committees. So sometimes it's quite common for a conference to have a committee that'll be similar to the United Nations Human Rights Council, or the Office of United Nations High Commission for Refugees. There are a bunch of different sort of affiliated organizations that deal with very specialized topics. They're connected to the UN, but they're not part of the official structure of the UN, and whichever committee is meeting will shape the topic that's being discussed. Now, the Security Council, when it's meeting, It doesn't matter if you don't know anything about the Security Council right now, but just so you know, the Security Council is the main decision-making body for the United Nations. The Security Council is the only body that can compel countries that are part of the United Nations to take action. Well, it turns out that in the Security Council, there are 15 members of the Security Council. There are 5 what are called permanent members, right? The United States, Russia, France, England, and and China. Sorry, and China.
I can
right?
cut out that.
I don't care. I'm old. They're the permanent members. They're referred to as the P5, right? The permanent 5 members of the committee. And then there are 10 additional members that are selected on a rotation basis. Now, the key about being, if you're representing the P5, if you happen to represent one of those countries, is they have veto power. That is, that any resolution that gets proposed, any solution to any problem that gets proposed, any one of the P5 powers, any one of those countries can veto it and it's dead. So oftentimes students think like, oh, I want to be a P5 country. That's not the case, because sometimes being a non-permanent member gives you the ability to play the role of moderator. And so we'll talk about that more later on, because right now we're just worrying about the topics. The specialized committees can be an incredibly wide range of topics. At one of the conferences that we hosted a conference that was a committee that was called the Marvel UN. It was basically based on Marvel comic characters. The idea was that these different countries were meeting because they wanted to discuss how to regulate the activities of superheroes who were coming in to try and save things, trying to help out, and winding up destroying buildings and costing lives, things like that. And so we had a whole committee based on that, where each of the members in the committee was a country, but it was based on these incidents having to do with superheroes. At another specialized committee that we hosted, we essentially reenacted what happened when the British left the Indian subcontinent. I don't know if you know, but when they did, there was like massive confusion, millions of people died, and so everybody in that committee played a character who was involved in what happened after the British left, and they tried to come up with a solution that wouldn't leave millions of people dead. As it turned out, millions of people died anyways. And then the really weird committees are called the crisis committees, and these topics can be incredibly wide-ranging. Again, at our conference, one of the topics discussed was the people in the committee. They were members of Harry Truman's cabinet. And the goal of the committee was to try and decide whether or not to drop a bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. When we do these kind of crisis committees, the history doesn't repeat itself. We can do, and the delegates can do, the people who participate can do whatever they want. I believe in that committee, the bombs got dropped anyways. But there was another committee, this was by a crisis committee hosted by UCLA, where it was centered around Harry Potter. Swear to God, it was centered around Harry Potter. And I don't even know what the topics were because I don't know anything about Harry Potter. The only thing I know about that committee is one of our delegates won. But outside of that, that's all I know. And then sometimes what they do is they have what are called joint crisis committees. And what will happen in that case is they have 2 crisis committees and they're both dealing with the same topic. Like there was one time where one of the committees were the Allied powers in World War II. The other committee was the Axis powers in World War II. And they were each trying to figure out how to respond to what the other was doing. But just like in real life, they didn't know for sure what the other side was doing. And there was like this group of people who were paying attention to both sides, the staff, and they're making things happen. And then revealing to everybody, how are the Allies doing? How are the Axis doing? And then you get a chance to respond. There was another one, I think this was also UCLA, where it was the Republican National Convention, I believe before the 2012 election, or maybe it was the 2016 election, and then there was another one where one committee was the Republican National Committee, the other one was the Democratic National Committee, and they were planning out strategies and where to spend their money, where to buy ads, those kinds of things. And those two committees are working independently. They don't know what the other is doing, just like real life. But the staff who are overseeing the committee, they're looking at what both sides are doing and then sort of determining what the outcome is going to be. And everybody gets to kind of respond to what the current events are. So as you can see, there's a real wide range of possibilities as to how they can do it. So next I'm going to come back in the next video, we're going to talk about the size of the committees, and we're going to talk about the role of the chair, the registration process. We're going to get down to some like sort of basic ideas. That's what we're going to talk about next. See you soon.